Welcome pre-cal students to the homework help video, page 164. Let's go ahead and get started with numbers 39 through 45 first. First of all, students, let me turn over and look at the directions here. Hold on just 1 second. Now the directions say to write the function in the form of this: x minus k q of x plus the remainder. Okay? And then demonstrate that f of k equals r. Okay? Now, here's what this simply means. Are you ready? This is q of x. What they're saying is, first of all, your k is 4. So go ahead and use synthetic division first of all. So here we go. 1, negative 1, negative 14, 11. Okay? It's written in standard form, and we're missing no terms. 3, 2, 1, constant term. So let's see what happens here with the synthetic division. Bring down your 1, multiply, combine, multiply, combine, multiply, combine. Okay, so there we go. Now, what they're asking you to do is this, students. They want you to do this. Now watch carefully. Remember, we're saying that you used a positive 4 here, okay? So we're gonna, even though you didn't get a 0 here, now listen to me, even though you didn't get a 0 here, we're gonna put x minus 4. Now watch, I changed the sign of the 4, times this right here. Well, this 1 right here was 1x what? Cubed. So this 1 here is 1 less. It's x squared, 1x squared, plus 3x minus 2. Then put plus your remainder, which is 3. So let me show you what they wanted you to do. All they want you to do is, even though this doesn't give you out 0, you can say that when you divide 4 into this, it's the same thing as doing long division for x minus 4. So if you did long division using x minus 4, then you can take the answer, which is this, plus the remainder. For example, watch, students, if I divided 2 into 7, I would get 3, remainder 1, correct? Do you see that? So I could take 2 times what? 3 plus what? Plus 1. And that would equal my number on the inside, which is 7. Well, it's the same thing here. We're taking our divisor times our answer plus our remainder. The exact same thing. Divisor times your answer plus your remainder. Divisor times your answer plus your remainder. Okay? Now this part here, all they wanted you to put was f of 4 equals what? Well, we used 4 in synthetic division, and we got out a what? 3. That means we have an ordered pair of 4 comma 3. So f of 4 equals 3. Let's try another one, okay? They're not hard. It's just confusing as to what the directions were saying. Okay, number 14. First of all, is this in standard form? Yeah, yes it is. But are we missing a term? We are. 4, 3, 2. There's no x to the 1, so we gotta put a 0 here, and then your constant term. So we'll put negative 2/3. And then we'll put 15, 10, negative 6, 0. And then 14, and here we go. Bring down your first term. Multiply, that's negative 10. Combine, that's a 0. Multiply, that's a 0. Combine, negative 6. Multiply, positive 4. Combine, you'll get a 4. Multiply, you'll get negative 2 and 2/3. Combine, and you'll get 11 and 1/3. Alright, now I'm going to glance in the back of the book. That doesn't look like it's right, but actually it is. So everything's good. Now, here's what they want you to do. They want you to write your answer in that form I showed you, where you take your divisor times your answer plus your remainder. So here we go. I use negative 2/3, so I'm going to put x plus 2/3. Then my 15 was x to the 4th, so this is x to the 3rd right here. So I'm going to put 15 x to the 3rd. Now, you're welcome to put 0x squared, but you don't need to. So next is negative 6x, then plus 4, then close your parentheses, then plus the remainder. There, you did it. That's all they want you to do. They're trying to teach you or remind you that you can take your divisor times your answer, your quotient, plus the remainder, and get what you started with. Now, k of negative 2/3. Well, you put in negative 2/3 and you got out 11 1/3. Or, like the back of the book has, 34/3. There we go. Let's try 2 more of these, okay? Alright. Standard form. We're not missing any terms. Square root of 2. So we'll put a 1, a 3, a negative 2, and a negative 14. Alright, bring down your 1. Multiply, you get square root of 2. Combine these, they're unlike terms, so we're going to put 3 square root of 2. Multiply, here's where it gets tricky, okay? You're going to get, let's see, square root of 2 times 3 is 3 square root of 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is plus 2. Okay? Combine these. Your like terms here will cancel, leaving you with 3 square root of 2. Multiply, and you will get 6. Combine, and you will get negative 8. Alright? Now, let's go ahead and write our divisor, what we divided by, positive square root of 2. So we're going to put x minus square root of 2. Then put your answer. Now this 1 right here was an x cubed. So this will be an x squared, so 1x squared. And then this is your coefficient. So be sure and put parentheses around the whole thing. 3 plus square root of 2x. And then plus 3 square root of 2. And then plus your remainder, plus negative 8. There it is. So we took our divisor times our answer plus our remainder, okay? Then we said k of square root of 2 equals negative 8. K of square root of 2 equals negative 8. We put this in. We got this out, alright? Let me check the answer in the back of the book. Yep, everything looks good. Moving on to number 45. Now this one could take a while, so hopefully we won't make any mistakes. First of all, standard form. Second of all, we're not missing any terms. 3, 2, 1. Constant term, okay? So here we go. So students, here we go. I had to pause the video so I kind of forget where I was, but standard form, synthetic division, and so here we go. First of all, 1 minus square root of 3 goes here, and all of my coefficients go right here, okay? Next, we're going to bring the negative 4 down, so it looks like this. Now we're going to multiply. Now you're going to multiply 1 times negative 4. That'll give you a negative 4, and then negative times a negative is positive 4 square root of 3, okay? So we're going to put that right here. This times this is this. Now, when you combine these, combine the like terms. 6 and 4 square root of 3 do not get combined, but 6 and negative 4 get combined, which gives you a 2 plus 4 square root of 3. Okay? Now we got to multiply this times this, and that's going to be a mess. A binomial times a binomial. It's going to be a pain. So it looks like this. We have to work it out over here off to the side. We have this binomial here times this binomial here. Okay? So we take the 1, multiply it through, take the negative square root of 3, multiply it through. Now when we do that, watch what happens. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 4 square root of 3 is 4 square root of 3. Now, negative square root of 3 times 2. Negative times a positive is negative. Square root of 3 times 2 is 2 square root of 3. Negative times a positive is a negative. Square root of 3 times 4 square root of 3. Now let's work it off to the side of your watch, guys. Square root of 3. There's there's a 1 here, even though you can't see it, times 4 square root of 3. Well, 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3, so we have 4 times 3, which is 12. Negative 12 because it was a negative times a positive. Okay? Now, we can combine these two like terms, and we can combine these two like terms right here. Okay? So, positive 4 and negative 2 is 2, square root of 3. 2 minus 12 is negative 10. So when you take this times this, you get this. So this should go right up here. And we're going to do that. So there it is. Now when you combine these two terms, you don't want to add this and this. They're unlike terms. But we can combine 12 and negative 10. So if we do that, we're left with 2 square root of 3 plus 2. 12 minus 10 is 2. Now once again we have the ugly mess of taking a binomial times a binomial. Okay? So it'll look like this. Binomial times a binomial. Okay? So we take the 1 and we multiply it through. Take the square root of 3 and multiply it through. Okay? So 1 times 2. Square root of 3 is 2 square root of 3. 1 times 2 is 2. Now, negative times a positive is negative. Square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3. Well, that's like 1 square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. So 2 times 3, which is 6. Now, negative times a positive is negative. Square root of 3 times 2 is 2 square root of 3. Now next, combine like terms. Well, look guys, we have a positive 2 square root of 3, a negative 2 square root of 3. They completely cancel out. And 2 minus 6 would be negative 4. So when you multiply this times this, you get this. So you put the negative 4 right there. Like this. Combine those and you get a 0. Okay? Now, you know what to do next. You take your divisor times your dividend and then plus your remainder. And it should be good, but don't forget, change the sign of your divisor. So the 1's going to become negative and the square root of 3 is going to be positive like this. Let me show you. X, just like if this whole thing was negative 2, you would put x plus 2. Would you not? Sure you would. Same thing. Instead of having negative 2, we have 1 minus square root of 3. So x, the 1 becomes negative, the square root of 3 becomes positive, and then negative 4. Now remember, this 4 here was x cubed. So this 4 here would be x squared. So negative 4x squared plus, this whole thing is your coefficient. So be sure to put it in parentheses, x plus, this whole thing is your constant term. So put it in parentheses, and then plus 0, okay? Your remainder is 0. So k of 1 minus the square root of 3, this, you put this in and you got out 0. So k of this equals 0. Okay, pretty tough one. Alright, let's move on now to numbers 51 through, let me look at the directions here just real quick. 51 through 57, the directions say use synthetic division to show the given value of x is a solution of the third degree polynomial equation and use the result to factor the polynomial. List all real zeros. So we're going to prove that 2 is a solution. Then we're going to factor it and then list all of the real zeros. So here we go. Alright, number 51. They're claiming that one of your zeros is 2, okay? So we're going to put a 2 right here. And use synthetic division. And make sure we get out a 0 over here, okay? Now, it's written in standard form, but we are missing an x squared term. So we got to put a 0 right here. So we have 1, 0, negative 7, 6. Bring down your 1, multiply, combine, multiply, combine, multiply, combine, and you get a 0. So we confirm this is a 0, okay? So here's what we have, students. Are you ready? This is one of your zeros. You put in a 2 and you got out a 0. So one factor so far is x minus 2. Now what are you left over with? Well, this is an x cubed. So you're left over with what? 1x squared plus 2x minus 3. Now, let's factor this. Because the directions said to verify this was a 0, then factor the rest of it, then list out the zeros. So, let's see what two numbers would multiply together give you -3. One added together give you +2. That's a +3 and a -1. Multiply those, you'll get a -3. Add those, you'll get a +2. So the factorization is x plus 3, x minus 1. And now list out the zeros. So here's your factorization. Now list out the zeros for number 51. +2, -3, +1. There's your 3 zeros right there. Let me check the back of the book, and we are good. Moving on to 53. Alright, so here's your 0, 1/2. This is written in standard form, and there's no terms that are missing. So we're going to put 2, -15, 27, -10. Bring down your 2. 1/2 times 2 is 1. Combine -14. Multiply -7. Combine +20. Multiply +10. 0. So when you put in 1/2, you got out a 0, so we confirmed it. So now your factorization so far is x minus 1/2. Opposite sign, and you're left over with, well, your 2 right here was an x cubed. So this here would be an x squared. So 2x squared minus 14 plus 20. Now, students, do you see how you can factor out a 2 out of this? So let's factor out a 2 to make the number smaller. So now I have x minus 1/2. Factor out a 2 right here, and you're left with x squared plus 7x, should have an x with it, plus 10. So now what two numbers, when multiplied together, give you 10, when added together give you 7? Well, that's a +5 and a +2. Multiply those, you get 10. Add those and you get +7. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and write our final factorization. Put your 2 out front, and then x minus 1/2, and then x plus 5, and then x plus 2. Now let's list out our zeros. There's no x with a 2 here, so we don't worry about that group, okay? But for this group here, the 0 would be 1/2. For this group here, the 0 would be -5. And for this group here, the 0 would be -2. Let me check that real quick in the back of the book to make sure we are correct. And I'm getting this wrong. Okay, right here, guys, sorry. See the -14? This should be a -7. So the two numbers you want to use are -5, -2. If you multiply those, you'll get a +10. If you combine those, you'll get a -7. So it should be x minus 5, x minus 2. Sorry about that. So this is positive, and this is positive. Okay? Alright, moving on to 53. Okay, this is my 0, so I'll put square root of 3 here. This is written in standard form. Looks like they're not missing any terms at all, so we'll put a 1, a 2, a -3, and a -6, okay? Bring down the 1, multiply, square root of 3, combine, 2 plus square root of 3, okay? And then multiply, and we're going to get, let's see, 2 square root of 3 plus, 3. So those will cancel, leaving you with 2 square root of 3, and then multiply, and you will get a 6, which gives you a 0, okay? Now, let's go ahead and list out what we have so far. X minus square root of 3, and we're left over with, this 1 is an x cubed. So this 1 here will be an x squared. So we're left with x squared, and then plus 2 plus square root of 3, x, and then plus 2 square root of 3 for your constant term. Now this looks like it's really hard to factor, but it's kind of funny how easy it is. What two numbers when multiplied together would give you this? When add together and give you this? Well, I know. 2 and square root of 3. If you multiply those, you get 2 square root of 3. If you add them, you get this. So there we go. So we have x minus square root of 3, x plus 2, x minus square root of 3. So what makes this parenthesis 0? square root of 3. Nice square root there. This would be negative 2. And this would be, once again, square root of 3. Now let me check the answers and make sure that's right. One of these should be negative. So let's see where I messed up here. Right here, this should be positive because this is positive. So this should be negative. As you can tell, it's really easy to make little mistakes on these, okay? Alright, so there's my zeros. There's the factorization, okay? Let's move on to number 57. Okay, students, here we go. We're going to confirm that this is a 0 or verify it. So we'll put 1 plus square root of 3. Then put your synthetic division. And then we are missing an x term right here. We've got to put a 0 in. So we have 1, negative 3, 0, and then 2. Okay? So we'll bring our 1 down. 1 plus square root of 3 times 1 is 1 plus square root of 3. Add these together, negative 3 and 1 is negative 2, plus square root of 3. Alright? Now, we gotta multiply these two groups together. So 1 plus square root of 3. Negative 2 plus square root of 3. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. 1 times square root of 3 is square root of 3. Square root of 3 times negative 2 is negative 2. Square root of 3. And square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. Now there's a 1 right here. So when you combine your like terms here, it's a 1 minus 2. That's negative 1 square root of 3. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1 plus square root of 3. Okay? So when you multiply this times this, you get this. Okay? So we're going to put that right here. Add these together or combine, and you get this. So now we got to multiply this times this. Okay, let's see what we get. We have 1 plus square root of 3. 1 minus square root of 3. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times negative square root of 3. Negative square root of 3. Square root of 3 times 1 is positive square root of 3. Negative times the positive. Positive times the negative is negative. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. Negative square root of 3. Positive square root of 3 cancels out. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So this times this is this. So we're going to put a negative 2 here. Combine and you'll get a 0. Okay. So here's what we have. We have a 0 right here. So we're going to put x minus 1 minus square root of 3. And we're left over with, well, this is an x cubed right here. So this will be an x squared right here. So 1x squared. And then plus negative 2 plus square root of 3x. And then plus your constant term, 1 minus square root of 3. Alright? Now, this one here is going to be pretty tough to factor, okay? Let's see if we can figure this out here. Now, students, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to teach you a faster way to do these later in a very, very near future lesson. So don't get frustrated if you don't see what I'm about ready to show you. But I'm looking for two numbers that when you multiply them together, you get this. And when you add them together, you get this over here. Okay? So, here's what I'm thinking. If I take negative 1 times 1 minus square root of 3. Times negative 1 plus square root of 3. If I take this times this, I would get this. And if I add these two together, I will get this. I know that's really weird. Don't be frustrated if you don't see that. I'm going to show you a much more efficient, better way to do these later. But for now, let's just go with this. Okay, so x minus 1 minus square root of 3. And then put your two parentheses. And once again, one more time, guys, look. If you multiply this times this, trust me, you can work it out and see you will get this. And if you add these two together, add your like terms, you will get this. So the factorization is x minus 1, and then x minus 1 plus square root of 3. There you go. Now, so the zeros would be, change your signs, the zeros would be 1 plus square root of 3. for this parentheses would be 1, and the 0 for this parentheses would be change the sign, positive 1, change the sign, negative square root of 3. That was a pretty challenging problem, okay? That was good for you guys. Alright, number 59. Now, numbers 59 through, let me look in the book here real quick. I guess 59 through 65, I believe. 59 through 65, yes. So just 4 of these. We're going to do a lot of stuff. We're going to verify the factors. We're going to find the remaining factors, then factor it, then list the zeros, and then confirm it with a grapher. Okay, so here we go. First of all, we're going to confirm that this is one of my zeros. Now, if it is, then my we're going to confirm that this is a linear factor. Well, if it is, this is my 0, and this is my 0. Okay, so let's take synthetic division, and let's confirm that negative 2 is truly a 0. No terms are missing. It's written in standard form. So I should get a 0 here, okay? Alright, bring down your 2. Multiply. Combine. Multiply. Combine. Multiply. Combine. So, this was it did confirm, we confirmed it, that negative 2 gave us out a 0. So put a check mark here. Now, we started off with an x cubed. So now we're going to start with x squared. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 1. Now they want us to confirm that 1 is a 0. So put a positive 1 here. And let's use this, okay? So bring down your 2, then your negative 3, then your negative 1. Now, it's in standard form, and we're not missing any terms. We should get a 0 here. Bring down your 2, multiply, combine, multiply. Oh, this didn't work. Let's see if we can. Oh, right here. My mistake's right here, guys. Sorry about that. Right here, when I put a negative 1, this 1 is positive right here. So this should be positive. This should be positive. So here we go. Bring down your 2, multiply, combine, multiply, combine. There we go. So we've confirmed this. Okay, so now this was an x squared, so now we're left over with 2x minus 1. That's a linear factor. So there's one linear factor. What's the other linear factor? X plus 2. What's the other linear factor? X minus 1. So we did it. First of all, we confirmed that these were zeros. Check, check. Then we wrote it in factored form. Now let's list out the zeros. If you take this group here and set it equal to 0 and solve, you'll get 1/2. Take this group, set it equal to 0 and solve, you'll get negative 2. Take this group here, set it equal to 0 and solve, and you'll get a positive 1. So there's your 3 zeros. Now, I'm not going to take the time and type this into my grapher, but you should do that. You should practice. If you type this into your grapher and hit graph, you will see the graph will cross the x-intercept at these 3 numbers right here. Alright, I'm going to check in the back of the book just to make sure that we are okay. And yes, everything is good. Moving on now to number 61. Okay, we are being told that this is one of the factors, so we know one of our zeros is positive 5. This is one of your factors, so one of our zeros is negative 4. So let's start off with positive 5. Now, 4, 3, 2, 1, constant term, so we're not missing anything. So we have a 1, then a negative 4. It's also written in standard form, which of course is mandatory. Then a positive 58, and then a negative 40. Alright, so we should get a 0 here. Bring down your 1, multiply, combine, multiply, combine, multiply, combine, multiply, combine. So this was an x to the 4th, so now we have an x to the 3rd, okay? So we have 1x cubed plus 1x squared minus 10x plus 8. So 5 checked. Now let's check negative 4. So put a negative 4 here. And here we go. We're missing no terms. It's written in standard form, so a 1, a negative 10, and an 8. And we should get a 0 here. Bring down your 1, multiply, combine, multiply, combine, a 0. So now we're left over with, this was an x squared, x cubed right here. So this is an x squared minus 3x plus 2. Hey, we know how to factor this. This is an easy factor. What two numbers when multiplied together give you 2? When added together give you negative 3. Well, that's going to be this. If you multiply those two numbers together, you get a positive 2. If you combine those two numbers, you get a negative 3. So the factorization of this is x minus 2, x minus 1, plus we get a factor from this, x plus 4, plus we get a factor from this, x minus 5. From right up here. So we did it. How do we know we're done? Well, what's your degree? 4. So what's the most linear factors you'll have? 4. So what's the 0 for this parentheses? Positive 2. What's the 0 for this parentheses? Positive 1. What's the 0 for this parentheses? Negative 4. And what's the 0 for this parentheses? Positive 5. So there you found the 4 zeros. Alright. Not too bad. Let me go ahead and check this in the back of the book real quick. Make sure we're not making a little mistake anywhere. And we are good. Moving on to number 63. Now, right away, they give us two factors. So if you took this as z equal to 0 and solve, you get a negative 1/2. And for this, you get a positive 2/3. So if you took that, set it equal to 0 and solve, you'd get this. If you took this and set it equal to 0 and solved, you'd get this. So there's your two zeros. This is the 0 for this parentheses. This is the 0 for this parentheses. So let's start off with negative 1/2. Now, this is a third degree, 3, 2, 1, constant term. Everything's in order. Everything looks good. So we should get out a 0 right here, okay? Bring down your 6. Multiply negative 3. Combine 38. Multiply negative 19. Combine negative 28. Multiply positive 14. So we do get a 0. So this 6 was an x cubed. Now it's an x squared. So we have 6x squared plus 38x minus 28. So now let's use this to confirm. Put a check mark here. 2/3. So I'll put a 2/3 here. Then a 6. Then a 38. Then a negative 28. Alright. Bring down your 6. Multiply, you'll get a 4. Combine, you'll get a 42. Multiply, you'll get a positive 28, which is a 0. So it checks. Alright, now this was a 6x squared, so this is a 6x. So we're left with 6x plus 42. Hey, that's a linear factor. It's a power of 1. So we're done. One linear factor is 6x plus 42. Another linear factor is 2x plus 1. And another linear factor is 3x minus 2. So, take this, set equal to 0 and solve. You get a negative 7. This would be a negative 1/2. And this would be a positive 2/3. If you took each one of these parentheses and set them equal to 0 and solved, this is what you would get out, I believe. I did that in my head. Let's make sure that I'm correct. Negative 7, negative 1/2, positive 2/3. Yes, that is correct. And then finally, last but not least, number 65. I knew they were going to throw a square root at us, which is fine. Now, for this parentheses here, your 0, if you took this and set equal to 0 and solved, you get a positive 1/2. Here, negative square root of 5. Okay, so let's start off with the 1/2. Standard form, 3, 2, 1, constant term, everything looks good. 2, negative 1, negative 10, 5, bring down your 2, multiply, you get a 1, combine, you get a 0, multiply, you get a 0, combine, you get a negative 10, multiply, negative 5, and you get a 0. So this checks. Now, this was a 2x cubed, so this would be an x squared, so we have 2x squared plus 0x minus 10. Okay? Now let's use this to prove negative square root of 5. So negative square root of 5. We'll put a 2, then a 0, then a negative 10, and we should get out a 0. Okay? So here we go. Bring down your 2. multiply, and you get negative 2 square root of 5, combine, and you get negative 2 square root of 5. Multiply those, and you get a positive, and trust me, it will be 10, because you have 1 square root of 5 times 2 square root of 5. 1 times 2 is 2. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is just 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. It's positive because you have a negative times a negative, so you get a 0. So this 2 here was a 2x squared. So this would be an x to the 1 minus 2 square root of 5. Well, that's a linear factor, guys. Look, that's a linear factor. So we're done. One linear factor is 2x minus 2 square root of 5. Another linear factor would be 2x minus 1. And another linear factor would be x plus square root of 5. Okay? Now, take each group and set its group equal to 0. This one here, you would get square root of 5. This one here, you would get positive 1/2. And this one here, you would get negative square root of 5. Negative square root of 5. Okay? Let me check the back of the book on that. And I think that should be accurate. Number 65. Yes, plus minus square root of 5 and positive 1/2, okay? Students, I hope this homework help video has been a help to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call